There are dishes that don't just feed you, they tell you where they came from. Today I'm taking you straight to Minas Gerais with Feijão Tropeiro Mineiro, a recipe that was born out of the road. Back in colonial Brazil, the tropeiros were the travelers who moved goods across long distances, and they needed food that was filling, practical, and sturdy enough to handle the journey. That necessity shaped the dish, and you can still taste that purpose in every bite: smoky, savory, warm, and satisfying without being heavy. In a Minas kitchen, you can almost hear it before you see it. The first sound is bacon hitting a hot pan, that quick sizzle that promises flavor. And there's a reason we begin here. When the bacon renders, it releases fat that becomes the foundation for everything that follows. If you rush this step, you lose the deep, toasted base that makes Feijão Tropeiro taste like Feijão Tropeiro. Next comes sliced calabresa sausage, browning at the edges, perfuming the air with paprika and garlic. The consequence is immediate: the pan builds layers, and those layers are what will keep the final dish bold even after we add beans and flour. Then we bring in the eggs, and timing matters. Add them too early and they disappear into the fat, too late and they sit on top, separate. But at the right moment, they turn silky and rich, wrapping around the bacon and sausage like a soft binder. That's what ties the textures together, so every spoonful feels cohesive instead of scattered. And here's the turning point: the beans. Not just any beans, but cooked beans that are well drained and still holding their shape. If they're overly soft or watery, the whole pan turns soggy, and the dish loses its signature bite. When they're just right, you get that pleasant chew that makes Feijão Tropeiro so comforting. Before we keep cooking, tell me something: what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? If you're enjoying this trip to Minas through flavor, leave a quick like, and if you want more classic Brazilian recipes explained clearly, go ahead and subscribe. Now, let's get into the step-by-step so you can nail the texture from the very first batch. Before anything hits the pan, let's set ourselves up for the texture that makes Feijão Tropeiro Mineiro so addictive. This is not a soft stew kind of bean dish. It's a dish with bite, with little crunchy and creamy moments in the same forkful. So I start with cooked beans that are firm, well drained, and cooled just a bit. If your beans are too soft or swimming in broth, what happens is simple: the flour can't do its job later, and everything turns heavy and soggy. Tropeiro is supposed to feel loose and crumbly, not wet. Now, medium heat. A wide skillet, because we want space for evaporation and browning. First in, diced bacon. Listen for that gentle sizzle that tells you the fat is rendering. The cause is time and steady heat, the consequence is flavor in the pan and crisp little pieces that stay noticeable in the final dish. When the bacon starts to bronze and the kitchen smells like smoky comfort, we add sliced calabresa sausage. Let it sear just enough to pick up color on the edges. Those browned bits on the bottom of the skillet? That's not stuck, that's seasoning. If you're enjoying how straightforward this is, take a second to tap like. It helps more people find real Brazilian recipes made the traditional way. Here comes a key moment: the eggs. I push the meats aside and add the eggs right into that flavorful fat. And I don't rush them. The cause is controlling the scramble, the consequence is tender, rich curds that coat the beans later instead of disappearing. You want the eggs set, but still soft, so they act like a bridge between the smoky meats and the beans. While this is happening, I've got the smell of Minas in the air, that warm, countryside feeling like a busy kitchen on a weekend. And I have to ask you, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? The food, the people, the regions, the traditions? In the next step, we'll bring the beans into the skillet at exactly the right moment, and then I'll show you how cassava flour transforms everything in seconds if you treat it with respect. If you want to keep cooking through the full process with me, go ahead and subscribe, because the final texture is where Feijão Tropeiro truly becomes Feijão Tropeiro. Now the pan is already hot, and you'll hear that first promise of flavor the moment the bacon hits the surface. Let it sizzle without rushing it. The cause here is simple: when bacon renders slowly, it releases fat and caramelized bits that become the foundation of the whole dish. If you crank the heat and push it too fast, you get burned edges and a bitter base. So we're aiming for that deep golden color, crisp but not dry, the kind that perfumes the kitchen and makes everyone wonder and asking, "What are you making?" When the bacon is just where you want it, slide in the calabresa sausage, sliced so each piece gets a chance to sear. And that sear matters. It's not just about browning for looks, it concentrates the spices inside the sausage and adds a smoky, paprika-like warmth that spreads through every bite later. You'll notice how the pan starts to look like it's painting itself, shiny fat, brown specks, little pockets of flavor collecting in the corners. That's your seasoning, already happening before we add a single pinch of anything. Now comes the part that changes the texture in the most comforting way, the eggs. Lower the heat just a touch and crack them straight in, right into that bacon and sausage goodness. Stir gently, not like you're scrambling eggs for breakfast, but like you're weaving them through. The consequence of doing it at the right moment is richness without heaviness. The eggs coat the ingredients, creating soft curds that cling to the meat and later to the beans. If the pan is too hot, the eggs turn dry and separate. If it's too cool, they get watery. Here, you want them tender, just set, still glossy. Take a second and look at the pan, crispy, smoky, golden, and soft all at once. If you're enjoying this step-by-step style, tap like so I know to bring more Brazilian classics like this. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil, the food, the culture, the places? Because in the next moment, we'll add the cooked beans, and that one decision, how will you drain them, is what decides if your Feijão Tropeiro stays proudly crumbly, or turns into a soggy stew. If you're not subscribed yet, this is the kind of detail we focus on here, so come with me for the next step. Now that the bacon has given up its fat and turned that deep golden, and the calabresa has those toasted edges, you've basically created the floor of flavor for the whole pan. Lower the heat a touch and slide in the onion and garlic. Listen for that softer sizzle. That sound is your cue that the aromatics are cooking in rendered bacon fat, not burning. The consequence is immediate. The sharpness of the onion melts into sweetness, and the garlic turns fragrant instead of bitter. Scrape the bottom as you stir, because those browned bits aren't stuck, they're seasoning. Here comes a moment that changes the texture of Feijão Tropeiro more than people expect, the eggs. Push everything to the sides, leaving a little space in the center of the skillet. Crack the eggs right into that warm spot and gently stir them just until they set into soft curds, not dry crumbs. If you add the eggs too early, they disappear into the fat and you lose that creamy richness. Too late and they sit on top like an afterthought. Right now, they act like a bridge, tying smoky meat and aromatics into one cohesive base. And now the key choice, the beans. They should already be cooked, but they must be well drained and still hold their shape. When you fold them in, do it with care, like you're turning a delicate salad. The cause and effect is simple. Watery beans make everything soggy, and overstirring breaks them, turning the pan into a heavy paste. But when the beans are firm, each bite stays distinct, with that signature tropeiro bite that feels rustic and satisfying. As the beans warm through, pause for a second and look at the pan. You can almost see the colonial road in it, the practicality of a dish made to travel, to feed, to comfort. If you're enjoying this kind of clear, step-by-step cooking where every move has a reason, tap like so I know to bring you more Brazilian classics. And tell me in the comments, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? In the next step, we're going to add the ingredient that transforms everything from beans in a pan into real Feijão Tropeiro, the cassava flour, so it turns crumbly, hearty, and unmistakably Mineiro. Now that the eggs have just set and that golden richness is coating the bacon and calabresa, you can feel the pan change character. It goes from frying to building. This is the moment where Feijão Tropeiro either becomes iconic or turns into a heavy, wet mash, so take a breath and slow down with me. I'm bringing in the cooked beans, but they have to be well drained. I mean really drained. If you scoop them straight from the pot with excess liquid, the steam will soften everything you worked for, the crisp edges of the bacon, the bite of the sausage, the little curds of egg. When the beans are firm and dry on the outside, they stay whole, and each spoonful feels textured, not soggy. Listen to the sound as they hit the pan. You want a gentle sizzle, not a wet hiss. I fold them in carefully, like I'm turning pages, not stirring soup. The cause is simple, and the consequence is huge. Treat the beans gently, and they keep their shape, so the dish keeps its identity. Now comes the signature transformation, cassava flour. I sprinkle it in gradually, not all at once, and I watch it disappear into the fats and the warmth, like it's drinking up flavor. Too much flour dumped in one shot makes it dusty and dry. Adding it in stages lets you control the final crumb. You'll see the mixture go from glossy to perfectly tropeiro, loose, fluffy, and crumbly, with little pockets of bacon and sausage peeking through. If it looks shiny and wet, it needs a touch more flour. If it starts clumping like stuffing, you've gone too far and you'll want a tiny splash of water or a bit more beans to balance. Right at the end, I toss in fresh Cairo Verde, and the kitchen instantly smells brighter, greener, alive. It's the lift that keeps this hearty dish feeling light on the palate. This is also why it's such a satisfying plate. Beans bring fiber and protein, eggs add richness, and the whole thing holds you comfortably. If you're enjoying this kind of Brazilian comfort food done the traditional way, give the video a quick like. And tell me, what's your biggest curiosity about Brazil, the food, the culture, or the places? Stay with me, because in the next step we'll finish the seasoning and bring it to the table the Minas way. And now, the moment that tells you everything worked. You bring the pan close, and you hear that soft, dry rustle as the cassava flour finishes doing its job. Feijão Tropeiro isn't supposed to be creamy like a stew. It's supposed to be loose, warm, and crumbly, with little surprises in every spoonful. You see the bacon still crisp at the edges, the calabresa releasing that smoky perfume, the eggs tucked in like ribbons of richness, and the beans holding their shape instead of collapsing. That's why we insisted on draining them well. When the beans are too wet, the flour turns into paste and the whole dish loses its bite. When they're firm and dry, each grain of flour clings just enough to coat, and the texture becomes that classic Minas comfort, satisfying, rustic, and alive. Turn off the heat and add the Cairo Verde right at the end. The change is immediate. The kitchen goes from deep and smoky to bright and fresh, like opening a window after the rain. Give it one last gentle fold, taste, and adjust the salt if you need to, remembering the bacon and sausage already carry their own seasoning. If you want the full experience, serve it hot with collard greens and a simple white rice, maybe a little orange on the side the way many families do. It's the kind of plate that makes you slow down without even noticing. And there's something else worth appreciating here. Between the beans, eggs, and meat, this is naturally high in protein, and those beans bring fiber that keeps you satisfied in a real, steady way. It's comfort food that actually holds you. Before you go, I want to ask you something. What's your biggest curiosity about Brazil? Is it the food, the music, the history, the regions, the traditions? Tell me in the comments, because I love using your questions to choose the next recipe and the next story we travel through together. If this Feijão Tropeiro made you hungry or taught you a new detail, tap like so I know to bring more Minas flavors. And if you want more Brazilian recipes, explained clearly and cooked the traditional way, subscribe and come back with me for the next one.